Okay, now let's have a look at these collars. We're going to start with the straight collar. So straight collar, on first appearance, what I would look at is this point here. It looks like I've got a pretty good point here, which is really nice. So the quality of that slight curve up here, which is the outer edge of the collar, and a nice angle going here. So let's turn this over. So we've got some understitching happening here. And remember that the under collar is slightly smaller than in height and sometimes in width than the top collar. So again, our under collar has crosses, and our face side of the top collar has wavy lines. So what I'm looking for is the consistency of the understitching, right? We stitched the collar across, and I have these pins here because I need to make sure that the fold is consistent. And that I've matched my notches. So I've got that seam under here, which is folded toward the top collar, which has the interfacing. And then I did the understitching actually to the under collar, so that seam allowance is pressed toward the under collar. And then I've got my understitching here, and everything looks really consistent, nice and flat for this straight collar. And remember, this is half a collar, so imagine that you would have another, actually half of the collar would be done. So this is a very good sample of what that collar would be. Okay, so this is a good sample. So let's have a look at this Peter Pan collar. Now, one of these is the front and one of these is the back. How do we know? Well, traditionally, the straighter edge is the back side, but we would also have a little extra notch here because there were double notches. That doesn't always happen, but just so you know, the straighter edge is usually the back because our back is flatter. And then we have this shoulder notch. Now this one gave us a little bit of trouble, but this was a very good exercise. So if we put two of these together, we'd have a nice, cute little Peter Pan collar, curved collar coming all the way around to the back in one piece. So we worked on our curved stitching all the way around. And then if we turn this over, we had this under stitching that was coming all the way around as well. And that was a little bit of a challenge. But if your piece looks good like this, then you're in pretty good shape. Although I might just kind of circle this area right here, just because the consistency of that understitching is coming around looking good. And then we kind of veer off and we go further away from that edge. And I'm going to unpin here, just so we can look at the inside and remind ourselves, just like the straight collar before, that seam allowance goes toward the under collar, and then we understitch that seam to the under collar. But you can see that that understitching helps that seam keep this nice, soft, round curve. And then, of course, we have to make sure that our edges match here, and we're matching all our notches, and that's why I put the pins here, because I'm not going to stitch it down or closed, because I want to be able to get in there to remind myself of what I did. So this is really great curved Peter Pan collar, and again, if you could imagine two sets going around, your collar, that would be really cute. We see them, they're quite popular. Especially for young girls' dresses and tops. So again, if you kind of got away from yourself with the understitching, maybe give it one more go and see how you do. But this again is another great sample.